Welcome back to my channel. Sorry for the little bit of a delay in getting started today. I have a really special guest joining me tonight. We're going to be having A.R. Hayes from A Criminal Thoughts joining us shortly. So it's going to be a really good show. And of course, the primary focus of this show tonight is going to be venue change. So I'm just going to bring up my first soundbite while we're waiting for AR. And I actually want to play you. I'm going to play you a clip from News Nation, but we're actually going to feature another YouTube creator that I haven't featured before. And hello. So I want to first start by playing this clip from News Nation because it kind of segues. Well, actually, I'm going to play the clip from News Nation, and then it segues into the podcast I'm going to be showing you or having you listen to. But we're also going to play a clip from Truth and Transparency tonight. And I don't think I've ever featured Truth and Transparency on this channel, but she had like a really interesting interaction with her panel today that I think you'll find really fascinating. And it's also news that I hadn't heard before. I'd really only heard on her channel, which I think Dinky mentioned it in his live stream earlier. And hello to the live chat, by the way. It's so good to see you here. Thank you for hanging out while I got everything together. So I'm going to begin with this News Nation clip. And it speaks about bias. And believe it or not, it actually brings up the Top Mom case of Casey Anthony. But it's an example of juror intimidation and one of the reasons why change of venue might be so important. All right. So we'll start with this. This is called... by News Nation, it's called Kohlberger Change of Venue. Danny.
This judge today said that this was going to be the hardest decision he's ever made in his professional career, whether or not to move the trial from Moscow, where I'm standing, the college town, to perhaps Boise. How do you think this is going to go? Which way do you?
All right, so we're not going to listen to the whole thing. I'm going to bump this up to 155. Just in case you want to go back and listen to it for yourself.
Said in court. Is it possible that if the juror is from Moscow and listens to the evidence and wants to acquit Kohlberger, but is nervous that if they acquit, they have to come out and then live back in this community and be known as the person who let Brian Kohlberger off? The psychologist said there is no one that's going to want to do that. Do you think that comes into play here, Susan?
I think that's a realistic point of view. I think that is something that I would be concerned about too. And we saw even like the Casey Anthony trial here, that when they pulled in jurors from Pinellas County, and after the trial and Casey was acquitted, what did they do in Pinellas County? They had signs everywhere that says, "Don't bother jurors eating at this restaurant." So they were ostracized back into the community just because of their verdict. But what were they?
Okay, I'm going to pause there and talk about it. And we've got AR here today too. Hey, AR, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. I love your new profile pic. You got 2 puppies in there tonight.
That is Bayou and Xander, the 2 boys.
So obviously, we're all talking about venue change still and discussing what we heard at the hearing yesterday. Did you watch the entire hearing, the marathon?
I wouldn't say I watched all of it, but I watched bits and pieces, I guess. That was a long marathon to watch, that's for sure.
I totally agree. I think the first half, when I was live streaming with Robert, was fascinating. I took so many notes and I learned so much of the psychology of basically bias and how just seeing images and words can condition you to vilify something without you even knowing it, when creating a bias that you wouldn't even be aware of, and that they can prove this in study after study, which sounds like, if you can repeat something in a study, it's, it's good science. It can be peer reviewed, I don't know. I thought it was really fascinating.
I agree. I agree. I think listening to the guy that did the survey, he definitely knows what he's doing. That's for sure. Look, I have to admit, a couple of the others were just kind of long-winded and boring for me, so I didn't listen to all of it. So I'll definitely enjoy listening to what you guys have to say and kind of picking your brains and learning from you guys in regards to that, because I didn't want to sit there watching it all, to be honest with you.
Well, yeah, and like I said, I didn't really the second half I had to kind of get the cliff notes on because well, I fell asleep during the second half. But anyway, you probably don't need to know those details. But so I think this is fascinating. What we just heard her say, and I'll just rewind the clip because you were probably coming onto stage and didn't quite hear it. But she's referencing the Casey Anthony case, or otherwise known as Top Mom, and she's talking about how when the jurors found her not guilty, and I remember in that case hearing from the jurors, they were saying, "Well, look, it was just not enough evidence for us to convict the charges you gave us. We're not saying we didn't find her guilty of anything. They just thought it was charged wrong." But these people were ostracized when they came back into town. And I think it's really fascinating because let's just say the same thing were to happen in Latah County. The jurors have the lack of anonymity in that courthouse. And it's not saying that they might be able to find some way around it, but without having the protections that a larger community might have to protect the anonymity of the jury, I mean, we could look at the same thing. We could be looking at the same thing.
I think I'm cutting out. Hold on.
Okay. I'm rewinding this anyway.
Oh. Am I back or am I cutting out?
You're loud and clear.
Okay. Sorry about that. It seems like on my side I'm cutting out.
Well, you sound fine here. Your mic is good. Do you know what the 17% that everyone's always putting in the chat means? 17%. I don't know either. I don't know if it has something to do with the IDAHO4 case. Too Fast says defense presents us. I'm sorry, what were you saying, AR?
I just see Kane saying 17%. Yo, the 17 is right. I don't know. Oh, it's that JZJ17, I think. I don't know. I have no idea. I'm trying to catch up too, so I don't know.
I guess we're just not down. We don't know.
Yeah, I'm not a cool guy, so I wouldn't know what the 17 is.
Not one of the cool kids, apparently. All right. Well, maybe our mods can help us be cool and let us know. I wanted to read that question from Too Fast. The defense presents a strong presence in what? Oh, maybe that's not. Is this an appropriate process? Complain about money in the chain of custody for moving evidence would be bad. So how hard is it to move the sheath and the digital evidence? All right, let me play the soundbite for you again, and you tell me.
What did they do in Pinellas County? They had signs everywhere that says, "Don't bother jurors eating at this restaurant." So they were ostracized back into the community. County. They had signs everywhere that says, "Don't bother jurors eating at this restaurant." So they
there, that's about
even if they think that they get a jury that is not biased and says, look, we'll come in and do our best and we're only going to listen to what's said in court. Is it possible that if the juror is from Moscow and listens to the evidence and wants to acquit Kohberger, but is nervous that if they acquit, they have to come out and then live back in this community and be known as the person who let Brian Kohberger off? The psychologist said there is no one that's going to want to do that. Do you think that comes into play here, Susan?
I think that's a realistic point of view. I think that is something that I would be concerned about too. And we saw even like the Casey Anthony trial here, that they pulled in jurors from Pinellas County. And, after the trial and Casey was acquitted, what did they do in Pinellas County? They had signs everywhere that says, "Don't bother jurors eating at this restaurant." So they were ostracized back into the community just because of their verdict. But what they were doing was their civic duty. So, I mean, there's a huge weight that's on each one of those shoulders. I certainly wouldn't want to be there. I have to make that decision.
Yeah, and they can do everything they can to try to protect the identity of the jurors, Susan, here. But it's a small town. I mean, I've been here for a long time covering the case. Everybody knows everybody. People are going to figure out, oh, my cousin was a juror, that kind of thing. Molly, They talked a lot about media coverage today as part of the defense's case that they want the trial moved. They did this telephone survey. They hired a company to do a survey and ask people what they thought about the case, what they think would happen if Kohberger was acquitted. And I want to read you some of the responses because some of them are pretty crazy. They say that they were told they'd burn the courthouse down. Outrage would be a mild description. They would probably find him and kill him. And another person said there would likely be a riot and he wouldn't last long outside because someone would do the good old boy justice. I mean, honestly, Molly, again, having been here so long, getting to know the community, it's hard to, I mean, it seems a little bit like an exaggeration, almost like they picked and chose which responses they wanted to use for their argument.
Well, I do think that we heard a lot today in terms of the thoroughness of methodology and how good the survey was and how the analysis was technical and precise. And I think the defense did a very good job of putting all of that before the court. That's part of the analysis. You know, you can't have a survey of potential jurors that is unto itself biased when you're trying to see whether or not the community is biased. But I do think that these responses are persuasive in that the court has to look not only to protect the trial rights, the right to a fair and impartial jury, due process for the accused, but also concerns like this are part of the totality of the circumstances that courts look at when they decide change of venue. So I think that those pieces of responses to this survey, as shocking as they were, they're entirely relevant and important to this court's decision.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find.
All right, I'm going to stop there. I mean, I do think that there's kind of a good point or kind of a good argument there that maybe the most like salacious comments were added to the survey and not necessarily the average of comments, but it's the fact that these comments were even made. And I don't know. I thought it was a fairly good argument, but I have something really interesting to show you. So earlier today, I got an episode of a podcast on Spotify emailed to me by Mikey, and it's the same one that we've listened to before. It's called the Idaho Massacre podcast. But Mikey sent me a really interesting episode, and this soundbite I think will fascinate you. So this is by a podcaster, or this is by an independent journalist named Tanya Rashid, and she was being, let me take down this comment. I can't do this. She was being interviewed by the Idaho Murder podcast. And it's like a 45-minute interview. It's a great listen. I'll link it afterwards if you want to listen to the whole thing, because she speaks about it, several different topics, including Christchurch and what would happen if a member of like Christchurch was on the jury. But I think what you'll find fascinating, I do have a 10-minute clip set aside, but it's just within the first minute and a half where you're just going to be kind of blown away by her statements. Because remember, so this podcast was filmed in August, but it's just amazing what she says, just putting aside what we read in that memorandum of what she experienced when she went to local bars. And I'll just let you hear it for yourself. So, I don't know if you're familiar with this podcast, but they really are like boots on the ground. And I think that's the name of this episode, but they really do get some fascinating interviews. All right. Let me make sure I'm sharing my screen here. All right, here we go, you guys.
She had, her hair was blow dried and curled, and
she's talking about Ann Taylor right now.
Both of them looked very put together, unlike the previous hearing where he was in an orange jumpsuit. And during the proceedings, she continued to say that her client was not a fishing expedition, and she wanted to see what evidence the prosecution had against her client. So there was a lot of back and forth about that during that particular hearing. And she said, quote unquote, "We've asked for several things that we still need." So, and those include cell phone investigations and what led the police to seek out a Hyundai like the one driven by Kohberger. There was a sense of confidence with Ann Taylor that permeated the room. And I remember going to the bar afterwards, and I would just listen in on people just talking. And they'd say, like, how could you do this? If he like steps foot out of that jail, like, he gets shot in the head. I'm surprised he hasn't been shot by now, like one of the residents said. Like, it was wild. Also, like, this very rural aspect to Idaho residents.
I'm going to rewind that part just because if you didn't catch that, that's the big point that was we're driving home with this podcast. This is the reason why Mikey sent it. I'm just going to play it again. I rewound it 30 seconds.
With Ann Taylor that permeated the room. And I remember going to the bar afterwards, and I would just listen in on people just talking. And they'd say, like, how could you do this? If he like steps foot out of that jail, like, he gets shot in the head. I'm surprised he hasn't been shot by now, like one of the residents said. Like, it was wild. Also, like, this very rural aspect.
I'm going to stop AR because there's a lot more to listen to. She talks about how tight the community is and how they centralize around kind of these, particularly the bar that she was talking about, but the bars and restaurants. But isn't hearing that really breathtaking?
Yeah, I mean, coming from the criminal system myself, it's very common. Death threats. I mean, even I, in my cell, would receive letters with death threats and people saying if I got out, they would find me. And the guards would let it in on purpose just to kind of give me the idea that maybe I ought to plea bargain or just stay in. So it doesn't surprise me. I believe a little community like that would tear itself apart if this conviction doesn't go through for them.
Okay, so I think I'm hearing you say that. I think it's going to shock you a little bit to hear what she goes on to say. And I'm not going to spoil what she says because I really want you to hear it from her own lips. But basically, she talks about staying in the hotel or whatever, her Airbnb or whatever, and being able to see Brian's cell from the window. And she talks about the feeling surrounding the neighborhood. Like, she can see the places where they go outside. And she tells you exactly how it feels in that close area, being able to stare at the person in custody. And it's words that, like, I can't paraphrase. You're going to have to hear it for herself. But I think it plays into what you're saying. And yeah, I don't know. I was just shocked when I heard that. It's not the survey. It's not somebody fishing for opinions on Brian's. That's just like the normal conversation when she got out and went to the bar that day.
She says she could see into Brian's cell.
She does. She doesn't say she could see into his cell. She could. She says she can see where he was holding, and then she can see where the inmates go outside. But I've only listened to it once. I really don't want to mess up what she says. But maybe I can play it a little faster so we're not sitting here for the whole 10 minutes of it.
Back to Idaho.
Yeah.
Or Moscow resident.
What were you saying, AR?
I was just say let's listen to what she has to say, but then you and I have discussed in the past. You do know that I sat right on the cell block for months where Brian Kohberger's housed, and you and I could discuss exactly what his housing's like. I could tell you exactly how he goes to the rec yard. I could tell you everything about how Brian Kohberger's being housed because I was in segregation just like him. So in the very jail he's in.
It's so interesting you're saying that. You know, we didn't plan this out tonight, but just for the people at home to know, AR and I have been working on a video. We just haven't put it out, but we were working on it for a long time. And it's essentially, I'd like to just kind of tell them, AR, what we were working on, but this is exactly the thing we wanted to talk about. AR has experience on this death row. He knows exactly what the layout is. He knows what the rules are. He knows how they operate. And we really wanted to talk about debunking some of these rumors that are out there, such as BK talking to other inmates and different things like that we've heard. There's been several of them, and some of them have been like in mainstream media articles, and they are absolute BS, judging by what AR knows about the facilities there. So it'll be interesting to hear about when people are already asking questions about it too. So I don't know. I'll try to. I'm not sure where it is. I think it's the next part coming up, but it'll be when you hear what she says. I think you're going to have a lot to add to the conversation. You're going to hear what like an outsider feels like staring at that, and you'll also be able to call BS if there's something about her story that's not sounding right, because we all know people say things.
A lot of these men that I've met were doing physical labor, jobs that were very physically demanding, and coming to the bar was just a space to let loose. And the bar.
Oh, sorry.
Friends meeting up, college kids, it's just the area where everyone flocks to.
Let's stop here for a break. We'll be back in a moment.
Hey, like call 1K feature incognito ditching to switching periods to instantly
We're in there.
How personal this is and reporting on, and just listening to the Argonauts, these student journalists who were the first ones on the ground when the murders took place. And I can't begin to tell you the ones I had spoken to. Ease not the word, but a sense of, okay, he's in jail. He's in the basement of the jail.
Okay, that's
really hard. It hit and reporting while also wanting to be a good journalist and tell the story the right way. So I would say that would be my most striking example of getting close to the story and people connected to it. I don't want to paint Moscow as a town that's just, it's forever changed and this horrible tragedy, these tragic murders took place. But at the same time, I also see the resilience of the community. It's a very strong community. And with the students too, they want to go on with their lives. And so the campus, while there was this somber energy, I would say there was also this, it's a bubbly college town. It's just very nice. It's wonderful, actually.
Was there a sense while you were there during the time of these hearings, did it feel like in the town that, wait, maybe this isn't the guy and like we're still unsafe? Did it seem as though, wait, look, there could still be a killer at large? Did you feel scared, or did it feel like it settled a little bit?
A lot of the residents that I spoke to, they said that they think it's Kohberger, and there was a sense of ease among many of them, the ones I had spoken to. Ease is not the word, but a sense of, okay, he's in jail. He's in the basement of the jail, which, mind you, my Airbnb that I slept in at night faced his jail cell, which was an interesting way to sleep. So when I opened my window from my bedroom, I would see where he was being held. So in terms of being afraid, I just wondered, this is a small town and he's being held in this tiny little facility that seems really guarded up and protected, but still there's like a little bit of, there's an anxiety that rolls in when you're in such close proximity to this alleged killer.
What did it look like from your Airbnb window?
From all ends, right? The Airbnb window, and then I'd go do my groceries and I'd have to walk up the hill and pass by where he's being held. So it was a constant reality for me. Even the Airbnb host that I was renting from, she said that she was really concerned about the property value and if people would even want to stay there. And so there's like this sense of like, you can sense that change as well, this unsettled feeling of the people who live near the courthouse. Walking by, I notice a gate, like a fenced up gate. I think that's the open air area. That's what one of the community residents told me, that the prisoners are brought out to walk outside and get sunshine. So he was being held in that area.
Having been there, what are people getting wrong? What do people need to know about the actualities?
I think there's, for the community, for friends of the victims, for those people, there's a lack of empathy in the reporting by the journalists or documentarians covering this case, which really puts off the residents to even want to talk to anyone.
This is
And
interesting.
so the biggest takeaway for me was
we're getting on to another point, because there's definitely something to be said about the rest of this if we do end up listening to the rest of this. But AR, so for what she's saying, so she's saying she could see the facilities from her Airbnb, and she said that there was this feeling every day walking by there, knowing that he was being held in that cell. So I mean, knowing that it's so visible and such a part of at least that area of the community, I definitely think that plays a role. I mean, having the person accused being right there, visible in front of you, being able to think about it on a daily basis, being exposed to that constantly. I do, from learning about the psychology behind bias that we heard yesterday, I could see how that plays a major role in the locals and how they feel.
You got to understand, though, the jail there in Moscow is really not a distinctive jail look to it. It's actually right underneath and kind of like catty-cornered and underneath the courthouse. So compared to many facilities throughout the country, this is very just, I guess it doesn't look like a jail. So her looking at it the way she is all because of the Brian Koberger effect, not because that building at all actually represents a tough or, I don't know the right wording right now off the top of my head, but it's not a distinctive, like, holy cow, that's a maximum security jail, because it's literally not. It houses very few people. It's very small. It almost makes you feel like you're going to an office building or a dentist building for the day. It doesn't give you the vibe of a jail. The rec yard is like a minimum security jailhouse rec yard with fences around it that most get to go to. Where Brian Koberger goes to yard is separated from that. It's a cage, and they completely black out the entirety of that cage except for the ceiling, which is also caged, so that you can get some sunlight. And when you're in segregated maximum security, it's called 23-in-1. You're locked down for 23 hours a day. You get to come out for 1, but you only get to literally go to rec yard maybe 3 times a week. And you're in that little cage. It's maybe 10 by 10, maybe. And you just kind of walk back and forth in there and try to get some fresh air. But nobody would be out on the yard with him. He doesn't see other inmates either coming or going from his cell to the rec yard. He's fully shackled both ways, cuffed at the wrist, shackled around the waist, shackles and cuffs around the feet, with a lock box that runs a chain from the feet to the hands through the middle looping of the actual waistband of your cuffs. And you're in that until you get into the rec yard, and then they take that off of you and you can meander around. You get about 45 minutes. They say an hour, but the 15 minutes back and forth kind of takes away from that. But nobody else is out there with him. Nobody sees him. Nobody sees him come up and down the stairs to go out there. Typically escorted by 5 guards, and nobody from the surrounding houses would be able to see him. Nobody. Are you muted?
Thanks, PR. That's why you're one of my moms. How many inmates are on death row? And then if you don't know the answer to how many inmates are housed there now, how many death row cells are there in the Latah County Prison?
So death penalty eligible cells, there's a total of 4. And anytime they have more than 2, they will transfer them to another jail facility that's undisclosed to people around, because they don't want people to know that he's on the move. He'll still be on the docket for Latah County Jail, but he may not be housed in Latah County. He may actually be in Pullman, or he could be in another part of Idaho, and then just transported via van back and forth for court dates. He himself is actually in Latah County. He's downstairs. And like I said, there's 4 cells. Right now, I highly doubt they have anybody housed with him unless they have another person that's deemed a quadruple homicide like inmate. They're not going to put a normal inmate down there. They won't put anybody that's general population with them. So it's very hidden and tucked away from everybody else. You have a couple of slider doors to get into it. And then you have 4 cells right next to each other. They're probably 6 by 8 feet each. They're open barred cells on the front. So if there are inmates in there together, you can talk to each other. From what I understand, they do have tablets. When I was housed there, because I was a financial crimes criminal syndicate person, I wasn't allowed any like electronics, so I couldn't have that. I do believe he has capability to email back and forth with his lawyers, and I believe he could probably email back and forth with family, and maybe I would think that's probably about it. The payphone is outside of the cells in the day room. So when you come out of these 4 cells, it's a thin walkway, kind of like a hallway that runs in front of the cells, with the far wall being a solid wall where the actual TV is hanging outside of the cell in the day room on that far wall. So anybody that says that he has the capability to change his own channels or watch whatever he wants to on the TV, that's BS. The shower is just past the 4th cell, about 15 feet up on the left-hand side. There's seating right there, so you can sit and watch TV if you want to. It's like a metal table with 4 metal like stools around it. And then you have the payphone hanging on the wall if you want to call family or friends, collect, which have to be on your approved calling list. And then you have right there in the day room, you actually have what's called the guard's bubble. And that is all the controls, everything for the entire unit is right there. They monitor Brian Koberger. They can see him at all times. They have cameras on him at all times. They change the TV station for him. They turn on the shower for him. They can hang up the phone on him if they want to. Really, I mean, they're just in there monitoring him at all times. So all this talk, the only time people may see him is when he comes out of his cell and he goes up the stairs to go see the pastor, the priest, or he goes to church services, but he will be shackled and cuffed and kept away from everybody and back and away. So all these things, of mingling and hanging out together, it's not happening. He's not controlling and watching himself on TV. You're not allowed to watch your own newscast about your case or your trial. You can't sit there and watch 48 hours about your case. You only get to watch TV a couple hours a day. He's really just in there. When they say solitary confinement, he's definitely solitary confinement. So hopefully that gave you a little bit of perspective. I think you're muted again.
I was going to say, I wrote down like 5 questions for you. And I've also starred, I don't know, 5 or 6 different questions and comments from the chat that I'd really like to talk to you about. A couple quick things for you though. Can he communicate with other inmates Like if I know you said that there's probably only one in there, but say another death row inmate was housed with him in Latah, would he be able to communicate with him? Like, could he call through the cell and like verbally speak with another inmate on that same row?
Yeah, you just talk right through the bars, and then when the other person comes out for their 1 hour out of their cell, because you get 1 hour out of your cell, when you're not out at rec for the hour, you also get the hour in the day room to shower, make your phone calls. You can watch a little bit of TV, stuff of that nature. But if there are two inmates in that holding area, because you can have up to four, it is a solitary confinement unit, but there are 4 cells and they've all been full. I mean, they get used. So you can talk right through the bars. He can also talk through the toilet to general population as well.
Are you
So,
serious?
oh yeah, you can talk through the toilets and hear quite well too. He could probably get to about, I don't know, half the day room upstairs. So I mean, it's a day room upstairs, just like, the day room he has is on much smaller scale. Upstairs, it's a day room, and they're bunks. They don't even have doors, so he could talk through the toilets, and people can cat call him, and he could talk to them if he wanted to. But I doubt he is. But he can. They can. They can cat call him.
Well, that kind of segues into another question I have, which was he has my question to you, which that kind of answers. But other than that, does he have any other exposure to Gen Pop? To the general
Only
pop?
in passing. Only in passing, maybe on the way to services like his church service or to talk to his pastor. But he's going to be so covered by people escorting him. I mean, it's rare that he's going to have any contact or see them or talk to them. That's my opinion. I know when I was there, I never saw any of the general population, but I talked to him through the toilets. But Brian Coburn doesn't seem like the type that's going to be having many conversations with them, or his lawyers are going to tell him very much so don't communicate. So, but downstairs was his cells are too. He can utilize services down there. I mean, his priest can come down. They have a cell area for that with the desk and everything where they can both sit in there. And then like when I'm trying to think of his lawyers come, they got a lawyer room they can meet in. But other than that, like his visitation, I think it would be on TV. I think his visitation's on TV. I
That
don't
was
think
kind
he
of my
gets.
next one. So for visitors, does that include his lawyers or like family members that would
No.
all be the?
Yeah, anybody outside of law, like his lawyers and people like that, it's very, very open when it's lawyers and very locked down when it's anybody else. So I have a pretty good gut feeling that his visitation is going to be on his tablet or on the TV. And I see Heather's asking a question.
Oh
She
gosh,
wants to know.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Do you want to talk about that right now? We can skip
So
over
I
it.
was actually housed in Walla Walla, Washington Penitentiary. I was transferred there from Arizona on a compact of trading inmates from affiliations. So they were sending one affiliation gang member from Walla Walla, Washington to Arizona, and I got sent to Walla Walla. And in transit, I actually got into it with an inmate Idaho. So I got new violent charges in Idaho. So I had to go to the county to face the charges in Latah County. And then I also I had to spend, I think, 6 months on an Idaho penitentiary intake, which is just their diagnostic. I got an Idaho number, and I had to go through their intake process with deeming what custody I would be before they sent me back to Arizona.
Okay. And then let's see, I have a couple more questions here for you. So as far as entertainment, let me take down Heather's question here. As far as entertainment, you mentioned a tablet, you mentioned a television. They could change the channels for him. You said some of the things that he wouldn't be listening to. So if he were watching that television, would he be able to just generally say, can you put on CNN or could you put on Fox News? Or would they have like some sort of filter in the jail so that he couldn't hear just any story? I just don't know how they could prevent him from being exposed to different things on the news pertaining to his case. Because you mentioned that he might not be able to freely go on the internet with his tablet and just check out anything. I don't know. Where is the line in his entertainment drawn for what he can discover on television and online? I'm sorry if I'm being redundant with your answers, but I just was a little unclear on that.
No, and it's understandable. A lot of people are thinking like he has this big digital cable or all the channels that you would see on cable TV, and you don't. You literally have about 8 channels. Yes, you'll have some of the local channels, and then you also have like TNT, USA, something that would play movies most of the time, or 2.5 Man or TV shows like that. So anytime news comes on, they either block the channel or they turn the TV off. So you're not going to sit there and watch CNN news regarding anything. The only news you would be able to see would be through the local TV stations, but they will block that within the jail, and the penitentiary does it too as well. So they're not going to just let you watch whatever you want. Most times they're going to throw it on one station and maybe 2. You might go between like TNT or TBS and watch Friends, and then watch 2.5 Man, and then watch a movie. But outside of that, you don't get to just pick and choose all the time what you want to watch. It's during when you have allotted time to do that, because when you're in segregation, it's segregation for a reason. You're being punished. You're not there just in an open, let's have a good old time like you are in general population or on a lower security where you get to play cards, you can play chess, you get to hang out with other people, you get to be out for 8 hours a day, all of that. And I do understand that Wanda Woman says that they play news in the penitentiary. They can at certain penitentiaries. They do. They won't on max security yards, but they do in certain states in the penitentiary where you have your own TV. They don't have CNN and stuff like that. Like I said, they'll have the local news. And in the penitentiary, you're allowed to stay up all night watching TV if you want to. So in jail, you're not. They shut it down. Big differences. So I get a lot of people, like Jumpsuit Pablo. I really enjoy watching some of his stuff. He's highly intelligent. He really knows what he's talking about. And he comes from a penitentiary background, so he's very educated in that. But it's far different from jail compared to the penitentiary, and I highly doubt Jumpsuit Pablo's been in an Idaho penitentiary. It's far different than where he's from.
And since we're going to comments, I've got a few starred here that we might as well just go through if you're willing to answer a few here. This one from OCD Shaggy, it says, AR, do you think BK talks to the guards casually? How can people stay sane, not being able to talk to people even for a little bit?
Yeah, I can pretty much guarantee you they have conversation. It's just normal everyday conversation. Um, I mean, most times it would be in passing because they're not going to just hang out with you for a couple hours a day in the day room. But yeah, they're going to have normal everyday conversation. Everybody does. It doesn't matter if you're in jail or if you're on a prison yard. Conversation does happen, and it's typically just basic, and you get to know them. I mean, like, most cases when you're there for a long period of time, they get to know you. You get to know them. You learn what their expectations are in the way that you do your time, and they get to know how you do your time, and it becomes more workable when you've been there a while. It's the people that are rotating constantly in and out the door, and the jails that have a lot of in and out the door action where it's a lot harder. Where he's at, I mean, he's been there almost 2 years. Of course, they get to know each other, so it becomes more comfortable. It becomes far more laid back, and he gets away probably with a little more than a typical inmate would, where maybe instead of only an hour out, they give him an hour and a half or 2 hours. I mean, you earn privileges too, so based on behavior. Again, you're muted.
Darn it. I was just saying thank you for joining us, Thomas. I know you had to leave a few minutes ago, but just a statement he said, one can only imagine what isolation is doing to his mental and emotional well-being. And that just reminds me of something you told me not too long ago when we were talking privately, AR, and you were like, it doesn't matter. He's still a human. He still feels the same things. He still feels depression when isolated and separated from his family. And it's just one of those moments where we have to think about the human condition, and it affects everybody. It doesn't matter who you are. Just an interesting statement I wanted to star and bring up. And
it's very trying. It's very, very trying. It could take the best out of you in a heartbeat.
The next one I wanted to put up was Viviana says, Wanda, he has a tablet, but he can only access certain things on it. I think we already kind of covered that. This is an interesting one. So Out of Order in the Court says, wonder if he chats with his barber, but I never really thought about that. So what is like the self-care? I mean, what is it? Can he get a haircut whenever he wants? Does he have like a time limit? Like, can he only get one before a special occasion? Is he allowed to interact with the barber? Because I mean, I would think so if you can interact with the guards. I don't know.
Yeah, they have a trustee barber that will come into his day room, and typically it's once or twice a week, depending on where you're housed. When I was there, I think it was once every 3 weeks that I was able to get a haircut. But I cut my own hair, so I didn't really ever utilize it. But yeah, I mean, he gets the trustee that comes in. They sit right in front of the guard shack. They got the clippers, and they cut his hair. I mean, you don't get a full out haircut. You just get your basic jailhouse clipper cut, and hope it goes well for you. You and that mute button, I swear.
Muted. Glad it was muted when I just swore. I would hope he has a tablet at least. Shoot, even Wade Wilson got a tablet, and we know that he was guilty. What is up with Wade Wilson and his press? It's just disgusting.
Wade Wilson is your typical. He was an affiliated member within the penitentiary that got out. He's narcissistic. He knew he was going back to the penitentiary the minute he got out of it. he accepted that, and then he just started wreaking havoc. I'm gonna do some videos on him. He has the classic tattoo work of a very affiliated member of the penitentiary lifestyle, but the problem is now he's a snitch. He told on somebody, and he's gonna have some problems now. He's gonna be in trouble now. They're gonna make him cut that tattoo off on the side of his face that's in the shape of a swastika. They're gonna make him cut that off.
It's disgusting. Like, I am appalled at the way that he's getting celebrity right now. And I'm appalled that like people are actually talking about how attractive he is and all those things. It's so disgusting. It says something about our society that people even print those things, that people even trend those things, that our algorithms even put that crap to the top of our social media feeds. It's disgusting. And then somebody's saying,
He's
wait, I
just
didn't know he was a snitch either.
Yeah, so he was caught bringing in narcotics through the visitation with a female that was trying to sneak it into him, and they got caught, and he turned around and told on people that was working with him in regards to that so that he could get a lesser sentence. But at the end of the day, he didn't take into consideration that he was going to be found guilty of the murder charges that were going to get him either the death penalty or at least, life without parole. And he did end up getting the death penalty. But, this is just a man that's so narcissistic that he lives in his own world. And literally, he told on some people when he was on. He's been in protective custody the entire time he's been in jail. And somebody asked, how do you cut off a tattoo? Well, you get a razor blade out of the razor, the shaving razor for your face. You take the razor blade out and you cut it out of your skin. Or you take a lighter and you burn it. You have to remove the tattoo in whole.
So
He's
they
lucky.
won't-
It's a small.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say they're not allowed to blank it out. Like they can't like tattoo over it. Like you couldn't put like something else over his face. Like he has to cut his skin out.
They're not going to give him time to cover it. They're not going to give him time to get somewhere where he could get more ink work done. And depending on what other ink work he has, because you can see he's tattooed everywhere, all the way up the neck. If he has any other affiliation tattoos, if he doesn't remove them himself, they will come in and they will do it. And you don't want them to do it because normally you don't really walk well when they're done.
And would I really want those people close to me with those razor blades? And it's just Twiz was asking what tattoos he has to get removed. I mean, we don't want to get into too much detail because I try not to talk about this subject too in depth.
Yeah, no.
They're gang related.
I'm not going to get into all the details of what they are and what they look like or this and that. I mean, they're very noticeable. People on the yard know exactly what they are, and he's going to have to remove them.
Mm-hmm. And they're on his face.
Yeah, he has some on his face, but I guarantee you he's got them all over his body. It's from doing work in the penitentiary. You earn them, and he's going to have them all removed. Or they'll do it for him. I mean, if he don't want to do it, they'll do it for him.
Yeah, they're not going to offer him laser removal. Unfortunately, that's not an option. I don't know if I should say unfortunately. He deserves whatever he gets. Although, I mean,
they've already let him know. I mean, typically, even before you get to the yard, you'll get a letter wherever you're being housed in jail that says, hey, before you hit any penitentiary yard, make sure this and this and this is done, because we know what you are, we know who you are, and they'll wait for him to get there.
So AR, why can't he just join that gang when he gets to prison? I guess this is what Twiz is getting at, because he hasn't earned these chats. Is that why he has to remove them?
No, he was already a part of the affiliation, and now he's a snitch, and he killed 2 women, and he devalued his way. He can no longer be on a normal yard, for one, and he can't have anything to do with anybody that's a part of an affiliation. They're going to be headhunting him. He will have a hit on him. Like, he can't go to any yard. He has to go into protective custody.
It's really insightful. I just really appreciate you taking the time to answer these questions. And when it comes to protective custody, I think we might be to that question already. Let me just see if I can get it. Actually, before we get to that, Tell It to Elle says, hey, y'all, Brian can get messages if he accepts your request to speak. I'm assuming it goes through others first, obviously. And here's the thing is I've had other people approach me about that too. And I found some abnormalities in the website that people have been. I think it's a fake. I'll be honest, Elle. There is a fake Brian Kohlberger website going around where you can try and email him, and that's a speculation. But I just say watch it if you're trying to reach out to BK, because there are people out there trying to trick people right now. And I found that out. You obviously saw my feature on Cyray. Well, I'll just say it kind of ties into some of the things I learned during that incident. We'll put it that way. But I don't know. Can he friend request people and send them emails, AR, other than what I was just saying, that warning I'm heeding people?
It's all approved through his lawyer and through the prosecution. So depending on what they allow him to do and what they've agreed to is how that works. I don't know exactly, who or how or why. I mean, I know how to put money on his books. I know how to send him stuff to read. To get onto his communication list at this time, I highly doubt people are going to get it, but they could try. You just go right through the Idaho, through the jail, through Moscow. They've got the portal right there, and you can apply for it and see what happens.
Thank you for answering that, AR. This is just an interesting statement that David Bird made. LE will provide company when they get desperate for a jailhouse snitch. And we've definitely seen people try to entrap people like that before. It's true. Rose brought something else up, and there's a couple comments after that I think they all go together, but she says BK is not in death row. And then out of order in the court says protective custody. I think they went together. Am I getting terminology wrong here, AR?
Yeah, let me kind of straighten out the terminology so everybody better understands it. Jail is different than prison. In jail, there is no death row. Death row unit is in the penitentiary once you've been sentenced to death row. In jail, you have minimum security, which is like a dorm room. You have medium security, which still has the out and about. They just have cell doors, but you still come out to the day room. You hang out with everybody, typically 8 hours a day. You can all go to rec together. It's general population. Then you have segregation, which is not protective custody. It's segregation, which means you're being segregated for other people's risk. Like, they're worried about you hurting somebody else. You're either a top of the line gang member, you're looking at some pretty hefty violent crimes, stuff of that nature. Protective custody is totally different. That is still segregated, but it's protective custody. It's for people that are snitches. It's for child abusers. It's for molesters, rapists, that side of things. So they got to really protective custody them up. We're people that have snitched, obviously, told on people. Totally different. So I want people to understand that even though they're housed similarly, where segregation and protective custody are similarly housed, it's two different things. Segregation, you're either a big time troublemaker, you're a gang member, or you're a threat to others. So they put you in there. And also you've got the disciplinary action, which they throw you in what's called the hole, which is like segregation, but they deem it the hole because you're in trouble. You got disciplinary against you. And then when you get to the penitentiary, it's a whole nother world. But death row units are literally only on the penitentiary yards. You don't have death row units in jail. You just have segregation.
Thank you, AR, for giving us better understanding of the terminology. And then, wait, I'm thinking they mean cells where they hold those on trial with possible capital punishment rows.
Yeah, that's segregation, but they can also, they could be in general population as well. I was in Arizona, I was in a jail. We had 2-man cells, and we had a cell block of 12 cells that came out to one day room, and there were 4 people in there on capital murder charges. I mean, everybody was high risk, but there were 4 people in there facing death penalty, and we all were housed together. We played cards together. That's why when and I talk about it in some of my videos, these type of individuals are the ones I sat down and ate lunch with. I played cards with them. When I was able to be housed outside of segregation, we interacted. The main people I was housed with were convicted or going to be convicted murderers and high level crimes, violent crimes. That's where I was housed. So, normal everyday people, I know that sounds weird for people to hear that. They're not all crazy. They're not all like these sadistic, you just can't be around them type people. They're not, we used to joke around and say they're not just, smearing their poop on the wall of their cells. These people are legitimately intelligent people. They play chess, they read books, they talk on the phone with their loved ones. They're normal, everyday people. So.
Thank you, AR. Couple more questions I have starred here in comments. I just want to bring up. Oh, and I think we kind of talked about this before, why I know prisons have the news on all the time, but I don't know about jail. So, and I think we kind of went over that. It is a controlled thing by the guards too.
Yeah, jail it's controlled. Prison, it's far less controlled. You have your own TV. You control what you watch. You can have it on all night long. And it's got far more channels. So yeah, in the penitentiary, you're sentenced and you're not, housed with people that are potentially still going to trial. Everybody you're housed with in prison is already convicted. So who cares if you watch the news? Like in the penitentiary, I watched Dateline News about my cellmate who killed his wife, and I watched the entire story with him on Dateline. So yeah, in there, you can do that in the penitentiary, but not jail.
Wow, that must have been surreal. You don't hear that every day.
Well, it was funny because his new wife, and I'm talking about the cellmate, his new wife and his kids were coming to visitation with my wife. My wife literally drove them the hour and a half to get them to the penitentiary so they could visit him and she could visit me. And we did that for over a year and a half, 2 years. So people are like, I can't believe you would hang out with that type of people. Well, who the hell else was I supposed to hang out with? I mean, that's where I was, and his wife was an amazingly nice person. Jen and his wife got along very well. The kids, everybody. So you know, they paid for the gas, and Jen drove them up, and we all did visits. And what a small world, right? Then I'm watching them on 48 hours.
Well, you know, you can outcast somebody from society. It doesn't make them actually go away. You know, and their people are people. They're still humans. You know, you can convict someone of murder, but people aren't disposable. They're still there. And you know, it sounds like something Jen would do. We love the way you work with and advocate for people who are some of the most vulnerable people in our society, certainly some of the most condemned. So anyway.
Jen was amazing when I was in the penitentiary, and it was visitation, because typically the yards were 2 to 3 hour drives for people to come be able to visit. And, you know, unfortunately, when a husband or a boyfriend or somebody gets locked up, the wives or the girlfriends struggle financially. They don't always own a car, they can't afford the gas. And Jen was just always a big heart and would say, okay, I could fit, you know, 4 people in my SUV. And she would bring people up every time that we had visitation. She would bring up people to be able to see their loved ones and their families. And, you know, we built bonds with people. And, you know, I mean, it is what it is. The guy that was my cellmate, if anybody ever wants to look up, kind of see who I'm talking about, his name was Doug Grant out of Phoenix, Arizona. He was actually the doctor and main training physician for the Phoenix Suns, and he had a big major trial, and he was my cellmate for a while. You can look him up. I mean, he'll just type in Doug Grant, trainer of the Phoenix Suns, murderer, and it will pop up for you. Normal guy, very intelligent, good people.
Thank you, AR. I'm sorry, I got so many questions for you. Before I get to the next couple, I just want to say a couple thank yous. Thank you to Typically Unique, one of my mods, for being a member for 1 month now. And thank you so much, OCD Shaggy, for gifting 5 Swamp Rose memberships. I really appreciate you. Thank you. And then a couple more comments. So I've got something from CBB right here. I don't think everyone's getting the fact it's not jail that makes you remove them. It's the other inmates. I don't know what we're talking about here. I don't know why I started that. Sorry, guys.
That's the tattoos. Nobody within the actual law enforcement or detention center employees dictates the tattoos needing to be removed or anything of that nature.
Okay.
The dictation of that comes from the affiliations and the leaders on the yard, the spokespeople that speak for the yard, meaning, I mean, there's so much terminology that people wouldn't understand. Just think of the presidents of the yard, the people that tell you exactly what you're going to do while you're there, whether you like it or not. If they tell you you're removing your tattoos, you're removing your tattoos. You're not going to argue with them. You're not going to get out of it. If they say it, that's what goes. So there is politics within the penitentiary, and yeah, shot callers. It's a good way of putting it. We used to call them the heads of the yard, the speakers of the yard, the council of the yard, the dictators of the yard. I mean, there's all kinds. I mean, it just all depends. But many yards are ran strictly by certain affiliations. Some are more widespread on it. Depending on where you're housed in the country, the politics are different. So
Wow.
hopefully I answered that a little bit.
You go above and beyond with your answers. That's the first thing I want to say. Thank you. Thank you for spending so much time explaining that. Rolo made 2 comments. I'm going to play them both in a row. The first one, he says, inmate locator, Latah County Jail, inmate commissary. And then the second part was, that's to put money for Brian's commissary on tablet time. Can you speak on commissary for a moment? And if somebody does want to send commissary donations to BK, how they might be able to go about doing that?
Yeah, I mean they have their online way of depositing money. I know that's actually changed since I've been there. They've updated that. So I don't know the exact way now that you do it. I do know it's done just like he said, through their actual site. And Rolo says he put the link, which is very nice of him. Um, you're not actually ordering it for him. You're just putting money on his books, so he's gonna pick what he wants. But in the Latah County Jail, they're pretty um, strict about the commissary. I mean, you can get a few things here or there, but it's not like the penitentiary where you can buy stuff to make full out meals and cookies and sodas and all that stuff. They're more strict hygiene and small food items.
It's interesting. I know there are people who have talked about helping by putting money on Brian's commissary. So I'm glad you answered that. There's so many comments to you. They just keep coming in. And this was the link that Rolo was talking about. All right, let me go back to my starred comments and see what's next. Kane was asking, are there conjugal visits? I don't know if that's something you even consider before somebody's convicted, but are there? I mean, if he had a wife, would be able to have a conjugal visit.
In jail, absolutely not. And 95% of the country is taken away conjugal visits, even in the penitentiary. So my wife and I were allowed to hold hands for 1 hour.
Oh my God.
And then we had to break hands, and then we could hold hands again for the last hour. But any type of physical touch, I gave my wife a hug and I put my arm around her waist, and they put a sexual disciplinary charge on my disciplinary history, saying that I can't remember. I would have to look up exactly what they called it. It was something like inappropriate sexual something. And it sounds so horrifically bad, but it's literally because I gave my wife a hug and put my hand around her waist, and it cost me 180 days in the hole, and I lost my visitation for 4.5 years before I got it back. Had it for 1 month and lost it again. So
how do you even keep going? That's unreal. I mean, just wanting human connection. Like, you might even do that instinctually, not, that's so difficult to hear. The things
Jen will tell you, yeah, the last 6 years that Jen and I did it, I mean, together in the penitentiary. Obviously, she wasn't in the penitentiary. I was. For the last 6 years, we saw each other a total of 6 times, and we talked on the phone about twice a month for 30 minutes. And that was our communication outside of writing letters.
There's a couple. Oh my gosh, they just keep coming in. All right, let me get the ones that I've already started, and then I'll go back to the live comments. Brian, we were just on the subject of the Deadpool killer. I can't remember his name right now. Prior to the tattoos, he was a really stunning man. And I mean, it's just like, how the thing that I don't get is like, yeah, maybe that's the case, but like, where is your soul when you see somebody, a paranoid schizophrenic, getting gang tattoos on his face, ratting out people and getting his teeth smashed out? Like, where is your moral compass that you would continue to say that person is attractive to you? Like, it just blows my mind that this guy is like getting so much notoriety.
Well, you've also got to consider too, like I still to this day don't consider myself to be normal when it comes to interacting within society. I'm very distant from society. I'm very quiet, reserved. I stay out of view. I know a lot of people think because I do the YouTube and you guys can hear me speaking in the videos, and I come on a live like this and we speak for an hour, 2 hours, whatever this might be, this is my social life for the most part, outside of just spending time with Jen and the dogs. I threw away my entire family life. I've distanced myself entirely from Jen's family, except for just recently I've started to make waves with her dad and her mom to where I'm now kind of interacting with them. I'm very distant from friends. So it's a very difficult thing because they typically say when you've served 5 years, and I'm sure Rolo will back me up on this, on a maximum security yard, you are deemed disabled. That's it. You're disabled. You're never going to be mentally right again. And I can honestly admit, going from the capability of being social to have doing what I did time wise, I'm definitely disabled. I'm mentally disabled. I'm emotionally disabled. I'm physically, unfortunately, heading that direction as well. But there is a difference between people like Wade Wilson and someone like me. I'm just distant, quiet, reserved, like my space, like to be to myself, where Wade Wilson is a narcissist that wants to take people's lives and get his face out in front of everybody, and he wants to be everybody's best friend and talk to the girls and do all that, where that was never anything that I was about. So there are differences, I guess, but I mean it's hard. It's very, very hard to readapt to what people see as a normal everyday life. Um, I can't do many of the things that normal everyday people do, so that's just what it is. So
Well, all the challenges that you've overcome throughout your life and the character that you have now, it's like talking about two completely different people. And yes, I do completely agree with his narcissistic, disgusting tendencies. But what's shocking to me is like, so I heard some of his background. If you guys want to hear a good kind of rundown of where the Deadpool killer story is at now, Bailey Sarian's most recent video on him is really thorough. And if you don't know, if you're not familiar with Bailey Sarian's true crime channel, she it's Murder Makeup Mystery Mondays, but she is one of the largest true crime creators out there. And she has the greatest writers and she's freaking hilarious. But she points out a lot of good things. But when she was going through his history, he definitely had signs of severe, it looks like paranoid schizophrenia at a young age. And it's just so weird because when they talk about the first girlfriend where this all could have ended, because in his first violent incident, he takes his girlfriend and he beats her up and he puts her in the trunk of her own car and drives down to the Florida Keys. And when he put her in the trunk, she was trying to get out. He ended up breaking her foot. And he's so demented. Like the only way she got away is he met like another girl down in Key West and he just let her go because he wanted to get with the other girl. And what's crazy is she immediately went to the hospital. She had a rape kit done. She had the police come. They lost all of her evidence. So he stole her car, kidnapped her, raped her, beat her up. She broke her foot, goes to the hospital, and he never gets charged with one thing. And when they were asked why she kept taking him back, she's like, well, he was just so hot. Like, I was like, what? But that was her answer. And it was basically sounded like after he went to jail, she just thought he was hotter, probably because you don't have anything to do in jail all day except jack yourself up in your, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I'm kind of rambling, but it's just astonishing. It's like astonishing that this guy went on this murder spree and didn't get taken in by all the red flags and people that got involved early on. It's just a terrifying story.
well, you would be absolutely amazed by the amount of mail people in the penitentiary get, and I'm not talking about just like one inmate or two inmates, it's the majority of them get like little fan club. Well, let me take that back. Like you have to be a case that's kind of known. It can't just be like you went and robbed Albertsons and the next thing you know you're in jail, then you got 2 year sentence in the penitentiary. I'm talking about more of the people that are going to spend 15, 20, 25, 30 years, if not more, in the penitentiary. I want to say I averaged 300 to 500 letters a day for my first couple of years from people I had no idea. Yeah, I had no idea who they were. And it was a running joke because I wasn't a person that at that time wrote many letters and I didn't want to read them. And so all these people were sending me mail and I'm handing them out to other inmates to write them back as pen pals, just acting as if they're me. And I'm not trying to say like I'm some big wig or something of that nature, but it's just kind of an idea. Here I am just trying to do my time, and people are writing me, and typically it was females, and they were looking for a pen pal, and they were willing to put money on my books, and they were willing if they wanted me to come come on, I'll come visit you. What can I bring you through visitation that you might want or need? And it's like, you know what? I don't even want you to come, but whatever. But I felt trapped in my younger years. I had people bringing me cell phones and various things, and they would get hemmed up by the guards and pick up a felony charge. And me, it was just like a game. I was young. I didn't really care. I was just like, I don't know you anyway. What do I care? But as I got older and I was with Jen, and it was so much easier just focusing on my relationship, my marriage, my dogs, waiting for the pictures to show up in the mail of the dogs and Jen.
Yeah.
And it was a totally different world. So
Yeah, so I thought of something while you were talking. I had a friend who was serving time in jail one time, and I wrote them a letter, and it smelled like my perfume. And the jail, I totally just thought of this, and the jail sent the letter back to me and said it was contraband. I was like, what?
Yeah.
They said my perfume was contraband, and I was like, wow, that's crazy. Like, why would they care what the letter smelled?
Well, and that's one of the things like the inmates would ask for. Hey, send me mail with your perfume on it, or give me some risque pictures. You couldn't get the fully nude or anything, but can you give me some risque? Wear something hot or whatever. And legitimately, and I saw Viviana say that these women are typically cuckoo. These are typically the women that they're single, they're alone, maybe they've been hurt in a relationship, maybe even endured violence or domestic violence, so it's easier for them to have interaction through the mail, that they don't have to worry about that type of stuff. It's a lot of stuff goes into it. But so property boxes that you buy at Office Depot or whatever, that hold all the legal documents and everything, and I don't know how many pieces of paper you can fit in those, or files, but when I left my first prison yard after 2 years, I had 211 property boxes full of just mail. So that will tell you
what it is.
like,
I wonder what it is, like the psychology behind that, because you think about, like, is it a power struggle thing? Are women, you think, okay, is it a woman who is who is on the husband hunt or something? But you think about it, is it a power struggle thing? Because you're taking somebody who's in a vulnerable situation. There's no way for them to find out any personal information about you, like how you are socially, what your relationship is with your family. Like, how you operate on the daily, how your apartment looks, how your house looks. Is it a way for them to dominate men? I mean, why would there be such an obsession? Like that's a lot of it. That's a lot of people reaching out to you, AR. That's incredible.
I mean,
Like,
I can kind of give you this idea. If you're serving a life sentence or more, and you come in not married, you are most likely, I would say more 90% going to be married while incarcerated. The
what is
majority of the people I don't know, the majority of the people I knew in incarcerated all got married while they were incarcerated. And they're serving life sentences. They're not going home. So um, you know, it really does. I got married. My second marriage was while I was locked up.
It's interesting, but I just want to also clear something up while we're talking about this, because I heard you say it in your videos before, and we're talking about his second wife. Jen knew AR before he went to jail. She was not looking for, an isolated person in incarceration. I just want to say that with your last comment that you said. So
Yeah,
I think
no, and I should let everybody know that about Jen. I had done time before Jen, but I was out, met Jen, and spent quality time with Jen. We were best friends. We were not dating. We were not lovers. We hung out constantly. She is actually the one that put her foot down and said, you're gonna shape up. You're gonna get your life in order. You're gonna do this. And she knew I had to go back on a parole violation. She knew that was coming. We discussed it. We decided to get married before I went to the penitentiary. And then she rode the entire time with me for years upon years upon years. It wasn't a short time. And then she's the one that helped me get out. And she's the one that's kept me out and kept me on a straight line. So Jen is not your typical weird girl in the penitentiary. She would have no idea about any of that. We met outside of the penitentiary and had a very good friendship. Very good friendship.
thank you for clearing that up, because I mean, not that we would judge her if she did, but I just think it's, with this whole intense conversation that we're having, it's worth it to set that part of the record straight. And I've got some more starred comments up here that we still haven't gotten to. Let's see.
I took over your live. I'm sorry. This wasn't the intention. Like, I hope you know that.
You are so fine. I mean, I wanted to stream for like 2 hours, and I just think that obviously everything you're saying is all questions that we all have. I mean, you're kind of giving us inside information we can't really just get from reading the headlines. So it's really important, and I'm glad you're taking the time to do this. The only other thing that I wanted to show, even if we don't get to it, is fine, but there was this clip from Truth and Transparency earlier talking about the Gonzalez family and some of the actions they've been taking with the jury pool in Latah County that I hadn't heard before. That's the only other thing I wanted to cover, and if we don't get to it, that's fine, because I think these questions
It's funny. I did a video before coming on live with you. It's on private right now. I haven't put it out yet. I was going to release it tonight, and I exploded about all of that. So if anybody, I know nobody's seen my content here for a while, but I'll just announce, and I hate that I'm doing it on your live, but I did finally do a video, and it will be going up tonight when I'm done with this live, so everybody can look for that. I'm not in the algorithm, so you do have to actually look for my videos now.
Hold on, I'm going to put your banner up here so people know where to find you. I'll put this up while we're reading comments too. Your banner is at the top.
And I do want, yeah, I'm sorry. I do want to reiterate with people as well that if Brian Kohberger does get sentenced and gets the death penalty, he will have to stay death row in Idaho. If he gets life in the penitentiary without parole, they will transfer him out of Idaho. He's too high profile for them to keep him on a yard in Idaho in general pop as a normal everyday inmate. So they'll do an exchange program, like just like Chris Watts going from Colorado all the way across to Wisconsin. They'll do the same thing with Brian Koberger, and he won't have a choice of where he's going, but they'll ship him off somewhere that they have a contract with that they could trade him. Just so everybody knows that. So Brian Koberger's either going to sit death row in Idaho, which is 8 people, I think, on death row or something. It's a very small number in Idaho. Or he'll do his intake in Idaho, his first 6 months in a what they call a, God, what is the word? Not certifying you, but they're classifying you. It's a classification process where they're going to classify his internal risk score, his external risk score, and then what they feel as though he can legitimately accomplish in his life while incarcerated. And then they'll classify him based on that, whether it be high, medium security, maximum security, segregation, where he'll go from there. But then they'll send him up to another state. And Jeff H, no, Willie cannot pick up the phone and call Brian. Brian has to call out. Nobody can call Brian. Brian has to actually call out.
Brian actually has to call out. Yeah, that makes sense. So his parent, I've never known anyone who could pick up the phone and just call someone in prison. I didn't think about that.
All phone calls are collect, and you have to accept the charges, and they have to go through the spiel that everything's being recorded, and he's an inmate at Latah County Jail. And that, anything that's said between that can not only be used against him, but if you say something out of the ordinary, they can use it against you as well. So, I mean, they go through the whole spiel. That's why you can't call him.
I liked this comment by Happy Hounds. It says, that story doesn't surprise me at all, AR, about Jen. I think people forget that the reason we're here on Earth is not for ourselves, but to help others, which will in turn make us better people. Well said. Thank you. She was talking about
still remember.
Sorry.
Yeah, about Jen. And one of my greatest stories ever in life was Jen and I had been very good friends, hanging out every day. She would spend the night. Never was it sexual, never was it anything more than we were just best hangout buddies. And like when she would hang on the monkey bars upside down, I would reach up and hold her shirt up so it wouldn't fall down and reveal anything. But I do remember one night we were out under the stars, we were going for a walk, and I just stopped. I looked at her and I said, for the first time in my life, I think I actually care about somebody. And she looked right back at me, and I'll never forget it, and says, well, you better damn well change your life then. And I didn't know what to say to reply to that. She just said, look, I don't want to be, with somebody that's an affiliated gang member. I don't want to be with somebody that's going to be in and out of prison. I want somebody that's going to love me for the woman that I know I am and what I deserve, and I want a family. And if you're able to change your ways, I'm all about supporting you. I'll back you 100%. I'll be loyal every moment of every single day. But if you break my heart, I swear to God. And I looked right at her. I said, all right, done. Let's figure out how to do it. I'll get out. I'll run out. I'll do whatever I got to do through the system. And then, I'll go finish up doing my time, and we'll get this all behind us. And, we'll spend the rest of our lives loving each other rather than, being crazy like this. So it was amazing how she put her foot down, and she was very strong in the fact, look, I'll be your friend no matter what. But if you ever want more than that, you better shape up, because I'm not going to put up with it. So it worked out well. Worked out well.
Yeah, it's like reminds me of that saying, behind every strong man is a strong woman. So I like that story. Thank you for highlighting it. Let's see. We have
I think it's important. I think it's important that people understand it's okay to support and love the people that you do. You just have to stand up for live life the right way. Love me, I'll love you. Otherwise, we can be friends. Like, dangle that carrot out in front of me, showing me everything that I want and can have if I do right. Otherwise, I have to settle. I'm just your friend, and I may actually have to watch you fall in love with somebody else, and that would kill me. Um, so it was definitely important that I took it as dead serious. I knew she wasn't kidding, and it was the best choice I ever could make. And Robert, thank you. I appreciate you, brother, as well. My prayers are with you as always, as everybody else in as well. So
yeah, and we know you're having you're dealing with a lot of family stuff tonight, Robert, where our prayers are with you too and your little family, that everything gets settled in and straightened out today for you. Thank you. And so have his parents been there to visit him? Wait, so it says,
yes,
okay, to visit in court and in a private room. The private room would have been
yes,
the courthouse though?
that was during an actual hearing that they were there for that, but they've had special visitation. They also visit via Zoom as well.
And then Ali Books had a question specifically for you. If there's money left over in the commissary and somebody gets out of prison, do they get that money or get to take it with them, or what happens to the money in their commissary? And I know you know about this and you can speak on it for a second. And I'm just going to turn my camera off while you answer. I just have to step out of the room for a quick second. I hope you don't mind, AR.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, that no problem. Yeah, absolutely. When you get discharged from the penitentiary, you go through an exit, and they cut you a check for whatever's on your actual commissary account. Now, if you don't have more than a certain amount of money, I think it's like $75 or $100. The state will give you $75 or $100 check to take with you. Now, the crazy thing about that, when I got out, they gave me a check, and I had no ID. I had no way to cash the check. Thankfully, I had my wife, but you do get out with a prison ID as well. I've heard, and I think Rollo saying cash or a JPay card. Some states, Rollo, I think that's California, right? I think California does send you home with a JPay or cash as well. But even those that get out with indigent, they have to get you a ride back to where your parole would be. So either bus ticket or some way to get back. And then they got to make sure that you can get there in a certain time frame as well. They'll give you that ticket too. You get released if you don't have your own clothes sent into you. You get released in the prison blues. Rollo, in California, did they call them prison blues up in California as well, or do they have a different term for the horrible clothing they send you out in? Arizona was typically a pair of jeans and a blue shirt, like a T-shirt. So they made sure that you had something to wear when you got out. Yeah. Everybody had some liquor for cigarettes and snacks and eyes glowing. Yeah, I remember that. Just about everybody talking about how quick they wanted to run for their smokes. Um, I mean, that was a big thing for sure. So no, in Arizona, they just gave me a pair of. Well, I got out with my own clothes, so I wore the prison blues for like all of 3 minutes before I put on my own clothes. But it was a pair of Levi jeans, with a like a Walmart blue T-shirt.
Arizona, they probably give you a bargain. This little humor. Sorry. Oh gosh. All right, so I'm going to get back to the starred comments right where I left off. We left off on this question. And this is interesting. So Twiz made an interesting statement. It's two of them right here. He says, listen, he left Washington without DP and conjugals to commit a crime in Idaho with DP and conjugals. Let that sink in. It is just interesting when we think of randomness and we talk about the randomness and the randomness of the choice of the crime. It is an interesting thing to let sink in. Rolo says, I think you can order. Oh, sorry.
Well, I was going to reply to that real quick because I know a lot of people are, they're quick to jump on. Why would you leave a state with no death penalty and go to a state with death penalty? When you commit these types of crimes, and this comes straight from the mouths of people that commit them, they want the death penalty. They don't want to live life sentences in the penitentiary. They know they're going to a really horrifically bad place, a bad yard. It's going to be locked down. It's not good conditions. You don't have good health care. You're probably going to get in a fight or two, if not 100. Good possibility you're going to be shanked. Me, I would flat out, if I'm going back to the penitentiary, if for some reason in my lifetime I'm going back to the penitentiary, I am going death penalty all the way. I will travel somewhere to commit my crime that makes sure I have the death penalty. So, and that's the mentality of most that commit crimes like this.
It's shocking to hear that and absorb it. But here's the thing is you're saying that's the mentality of the people that commit these crimes. And you would know. It's just interesting to hear.
Wade Wilson knew he would get the death penalty, didn't hesitate. And I'm talking about people that are like criminal-minded individuals. Now, it might be different for somebody like that has a family and it's just a spur-of-the-moment accidental type of deal. They didn't like plan it out for years and then do it. If you get angry and you accidentally, take the life of somebody, well, that's a little different. What I'm talking about is the people, the mentality that aim to devastate someone's life or take life. They typically are just fine getting the death penalty. And if they don't get it on the first shot, just like I have a good friend in Arizona, he killed an inmate in the jail. He was there on armed weapons charges as a felon, so he was going to face 20 years in Arizona. 20 years sucks. So he killed an inmate in the jail, got the death penalty, and now since then he's killed 3 more inmates on death row in Arizona, all in hopes to speed up his execution.
It's just so hard
That's
to hear.
the type of mentality.
But it's like people go to prison and they like have no chance. It is such cruel and unusual punishment in itself. Like there's no safety, there's no sanctuary, there's no way to just serve your time and rehabilitate. You have to enter into this crazy like Lord of the Flies freaking.
Well, don't get me wrong. You can go in there and if you stay focused and just kind of put your head down and do your own thing, depending on where you're housed. You got to be on a lower security yard. You can go to school, you can go get a job, you can do things on the yard that keep you busy. Come back to your cell, you go to sleep, you go to rec. But the politics and the rules are always there. You're always at risk. You're always in danger. And anytime something pops on the yard, you better damn well be right in the middle of it, or else others are going to take it out on you for not being in the middle of it. So if you're not a fighter, if you're not a person that's got kind of a darker, meaner side to you, you better learn it quick because people will put it on you if you don't. And I was a educated young man. Growing up, I came with a teachers, a mom, a bankers, a stepdad, a dorky little brother that wanted to be a lawyer. So I didn't come from a background of crazy violence or any type of prison mentality. But I'll tell you what, when I got there, I knew right away. It was like, uh-oh, I got to man up. I got to man up. Otherwise, I'm not walking out of here. And I knew that for a fact. If I don't man up, I'm not leaving this facility, and it's going to be painful. So that's what everybody goes through, no matter who you are. I don't care who you are. That's what you go through. So female is a little bit different. It's a little bit easier, but not all the time. But I mean, they have different ways that they do time. Men are just, man, you want to talk about like the most conceited, narcissistic, crybaby, you owe me the world type individuals. You find them all in prison.
I heard that in females, when they're the female incarceration is like a matriarchy, or it's like there's like a mom and a pop, and like, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, they call them families.
Okay.
So you're gonna have, obviously, the entire yard's female, so you're not gonna have a male and a female. So you're gonna have the mom and the dad of the family, and then they have children, and that's a family. And then you'll have another family and another family, and the parents are the ones that talk it out. If there's a problem on the yard, it's the parents that talk. But I'll tell you what, you can it can get out of hand quick on a female yard too. Trust me. I mean, you just never know. But it's not typically on the female side of things. It's not as aggressive, and I mean, every day. It's violence every single day. I watch somebody get helicoptered off the yard every single day. I've watched people lose their lives every single day. And when you go years of doing that, you become, I guess, like stone cold. Just, well, look at that. It happened again. Who was it today? Oh, it was Jim. Damn, I like Jim. I used to eat lunch with Jim. Too bad. I hope his wife will be okay. I mean, it's just like, we'll move on now. Wonder who they're going to put in his cell. I mean, it's just like, and that's why a lot of people click up. They call it clicking up, and you kind of do it for a little bit of protection, but then once you get a name for yourself, well, now you got people that answer to you, so you got a little bit of a leadership quality. My leadership quality when I was in Arizona was when things were really aggressive between the races, where a riot was going to break out. I was the one that, for the white race, would go with another white little youngster, and we would go cell to cell talking to every white boy on the yard to try to defuse it. And then I would sit down with the other main talkers of the other races and see if we can come to an agreement to where it wouldn't get violent and we could avoid lockdowns and things of that nature. So that was my quality, is I was able to go around and defuse things, because people said I had a pretty common sense and patient kind of tone in the way that I handled myself. But you never know. It still popped.
Well, I mean, that just goes to like your natural your nature. You're a negotiator, and I've said to you before in some of these crazy little dramas that have broke out on YouTube, like, you've definitely taken the role of a peacemaker. So I can see how you naturally fell into that position when you were incarcerated.
I just feel as though if there's a way of working it out, just dropping it and moving on, that's always the best route. I mean, why drag it out longer than it needs to be drug out? Why? And most of the time in these arguments and these things being said, and even in the YouTube realm, when we get a little bit angry, we say things that we don't necessarily always mean or want to say. We just say them because we're in a position that we're frustrated or angry. And I just tend to just get past that part and say, okay, well, I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I have so many things I want to say, but I'm not going to. How are we going to resolve this? Let's just get past it so we can be done with it type attitude. And I've had that the majority of my life. So
just wanted to take a moment to recognize it, and we appreciate that about
thank you.
I've got three comments from Rollo, and then I've got a question here, or actually I've got 2 comments and a question for Rollo, and then another question from Melissa Massacre. So first, Rollo says, welcome y'all. Literature, magazines, letters, photos are gold to inmates, even if they don't reply for fear of getting attached to someone with malicious agenda. He loves reading from the outside world. And I think that's so true. Like, so if it was something you want to do, like I've heard Robert say he's wrote a letter to BK. Like Rollo was saying, all inmates, that's like gold to them, getting those communications from the outside world.
I got him a couple magazine subscriptions. Like I know he studies and reads, so I got him a couple different prescriptions. I keep calling them prescriptions, subscriptions to magazines. I bought him a couple books that I enjoyed reading, kind of on the self-help, dive deep within yourself. So I always recommend for people that are looking for a way to support someone that's in a difficult position of incarceration, that maybe you don't know that well or you don't know what to say to them, get them something that will make them think and reflect on themselves. Because trust me, even a book you wouldn't think an inmate would want to read, like a self-help book, they'll read it because they don't have anything else to read. So they'll read it and it might just hit home.
It's really insightful. Thank you for saying that. You know, I'm just going to bring up this comment by Melissa Massacre. It's slightly off subject, but I've heard this come up recently, and I do think it's an irrelevant thing to bring up. She's saying, did Brian train a dog? And again, AR, I'm not trying to get off of the subject we're on, but I have heard this in the last 24 hours that he was involved in dog training. And there's been a lot of talk about some of the gruesome events that happened with local animals prior to the event and people who have tried to tie them back to BK. And I think this is a really humanizing thing. Have you heard about BK working or training with dogs?
I have heard that. And, even his lawyer said, he has a dog that he trained that he really, really loves. So I believe that's a dog that lives with his family. Now, and this is a good topic to actually kind of switch into, because this is going to be a double-edged sword type of open discussion that people can have. Because one, it's going to show the sympathy or the compassionate side of Brian Kohberger, and the fact that he loves animals, he loves his family, he's not this methodical person that's out there. But then you're going to have the opposite side of that that's going to say, oh, he's the one that's skinning these dogs, or he's doing this. Look, I mean, just because you love one dog doesn't mean you love all dogs. Then it's going to fall into a third category. I was thinking about doing a video on this, but I guess I'll just speak about it here. It's going to fall into that third category of, that's why Murphy was locked in the guest bedroom where Kaylee was supposed to be sleeping, her room. And that's why he was unharmed, just because Brian Kohberger cared about animals. So it could take 3 different twists.
Thank you for answering that. I appreciate it. And just to clear things up, a few people have said it was mentioned in the hearings yesterday, and that's why it's becoming front and center. Viviana made that comment.
Yeah, and Taylor brought it up. She mentioned it.
Rollo had a question. Back to the commissary, can they buy different packages and bundles, such as sweet snacks, hygienes, food, coffee stuff, or is it just putting books on the commissary if you wanted to do that for someone on the
in Idaho, you can send, if it's through an authorized, like on their list for the jail, you can buy books and magazines and stuff, but you can't bundle up. And I know exactly what Rolo's talking about, because in some states, your family can go buy things, box it up, and send it in, and that's what you get for your commissary. So they could buy your shampoo from Walmart, they could buy your toothpaste, they could buy you boxers, they could buy you honey buns, and then send it into you. It's kind of getting away from that now, and Idaho doesn't fall into that category. But what they do, if and when you get to the penitentiary, they have where you can buy a bundle straight through the penitentiary, where they'll bundle it up there. You can't send it in, it's bought through them. So it's not like the old days that I know Rolo from California, because I did some time in California too. People, you literally could go shopping for you at Walmart and different places, and I think you could get a 50 to 100 pound box once every so many months or whatever it was that they could ship into you. And that's not the way it is now, unfortunately.
Interesting. And then next was, so you were talking about how you were deemed disabled, then there was physically disabled, mentally disabled, different things, your health. And this was an interesting comment I started where Rolo was agreeing with you back then. He says, affirmative, if you take mental health pills, they will remove you from the mainline yard. Is that what you're speaking? Oh.
Well, yeah, they have medical yards that they'll move you off of a general population normal yard, and they'll move you over to what's called a medical treatment. And we used to call it the crazy house. Even in the book I'm writing, I do a couple of chapters, where I kind of give the image of putting the helmet on your head so you don't fall down, hit your head on the pavement, hurt yourself, because you kind of run around like a mental. But I don't think people fully grasp and understand, when you do a lot of time, your mental state just goes to shit. I mean, I hate to use that word, I apologize, but it just falls off the earth. Like, you're gone. When I got out of the penitentiary my first time, after doing, what did I do my first time? 8.5 or 9 years? I think I did 9 years. Yeah, I think it was 16 till I was 25. I got out and I was just hell on wheels. I'm telling you, like, I couldn't control my thinking. I couldn't control my emotions. I couldn't control anything. And I'm sure Rolo and other people that have done time would completely understand what I'm talking about. I had no concept of reality. This time, luckily, what got me was the fact that I had Jen to help me. And even though we weren't getting visitations and stuff at the end of my time, she convinced me to start meeting with counselors and various people to try to help me prepare myself emotionally for what it was going to be like coming back into the real world. And I'm still, every day I'm dealing with it. I don't bring it up, I don't talk about much, but it gets very hard every day. Oh, look, there's the meth head on YouTube again. Oh, look, the drug addict. And it's like, guys, I've never done drugs in my life. That's not what I'm about. I've never been a drug addict. That wasn't a part of anything I did in life. But, they see someone that's skinny and they got scars and it's like, you don't know, but it's hard to deal with negativity. And the only way that I've been able to do it is because Jen, like, every single day, counsels me every day. Behind the scenes, Jen is counseling me every single day. Sits me down, counsels me, asks me about my day, asks me how I felt about things, talk it out, even though I don't want to, and I stomp my feet and walk around like a madman. That's what she gets me to doing. And I think that's what's so hard for people coming out of lockup, is they don't have that people helping them to go there. So, I mean, it's just, I was very fortunate this time. Otherwise, I knew, and I even told Jen, I think I was about 6 months to be able to come home. And I wrote Jen and I said, look, if this marriage isn't going to work, if this is going to be a situation, tell me now, because I'm just going to stay here. And people don't know what that means. I was going to commit a crime in the penitentiary to ensure that I spent the rest of my life in the penitentiary. So it was like, I'm not going to come back to society to nothing. So I don't know. Rambling. Sorry.
No, you're not rambling. And I mean, if somebody is listening who has a family member or friend or someone that they love, I mean, here's one person who literally turned around the course of his future because of love in a relationship. And it's very important to know, number one, people can change. People can do a 180 in their lives. And if you allow love, if you spread love, can conquer all. That's all I'm saying. So I just think it's important to share, because people lose hope or people lose faith in other people. And it's important that you share your story, because there's a lot of other people.
And I think that's what my niche is. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. It kind of glitched. I thought you were done. When I talked to Jen, when it came to doing YouTube, I didn't have the confidence to really come into the true crime genre and just everyday talk about true crime. But I had a thought that I was discussing back and forth with Jen, that we both felt as though I could help others get through the struggles if I can open up their eyes that it's okay to talk and to open up and discuss it with people that have got some knowledge and understanding of it. So my whole want for this, of course, was to talk true crime. I mean, that's an ambition that I really have. And I write a lot of stuff, and I know I keep saying I'm going to put it out. I'm going to, in regards to true crime stuff, not just my own personal, but I've been around a lot of big case people. I've been locked up with some big criminals, they have far more clout than I ever did in the criminal world. But I know there's people out there struggling, whether it be family members of people that are going through the system, people that are in the courts, people that are in the penitentiary, people that are getting out of the penitentiary. And I just want to be that person that could stand before him and say, look, I'm not judging you. I have no ill feelings towards anything about it. I just want to help. If there's a way I can help, make it more understanding, make the emotional chaos a little bit less. Even, I stepped in, I think it was twice last year. A couple of families had 19 and 22-year-old kids that were about ready to get life sentences on the path that they were at. I mean, they were out shooting up cars, and Jen and I left Vegas to drive back to Denver. We were staying at Denver, but we came out to Vegas at that point. And we drove through the middle of the night to get back. And I sat both of those young men down in the jail, in the actual visitation of the jail. And I'm like, look, man, I'm on your side. Let's work this out before you guys get a life sentence. We got to stop this. Like, literally work together and stop this. And I'll ride with you. I'll be right there with you. If you got to come to my house, eat my food, whatever you got to do, I'm going to. And they're both now working. I mean, they have jobs. They're staying out of trouble. They're not going to get their education like I wanted them to do and stuff like that, but they have jobs and they're staying out of trouble. So, and I talk to them about every other day. And I think that's what's important, is if we can all make a little bit of a difference like that in somebody's life, whether it be love, whether it be getting somebody out of a domestic issue, whatever it might be, we can make a difference. And that's what I strive to do. That's what I want to do. And hopefully I can continue on the path to do that. So
we applaud you for everything. All right, the next comment. Kane has said, this is just funny. We were talking about the perfume being contraband. And Kane made this funny comment I was going to read. Swamp Rose, your perfume is banned in 50 countries. Too sexy. I remember the perfume it was too, because I wear them in like different spans of life. And it's a perfume they don't make anymore. And it was really stinky. So I like can see how this happened. But and like other girls who know this perfume would agree with me. It was a perfume called Gucci Rush. It was like in the most horrible packaging ever. Like, but anyway, yeah, it was really stinky perfume. It was good, smelled good, but it was strong. They don't make it anymore. So I think they make a new version of it. They came out with like the new like a couple years ago, they came out with like a new version of it, but it never smells the same when they come out with a new version. I'm sorry, I should stop talking before we lose viewers. So back to the subject at hand. Let's see. Okay. Viviana says, when I worked at KXLY, we used to get collect calls from inmates constantly wanting us to air their stories. It's interesting. I think that's when we were talking about you can't call into the jail. All these inmates can do is try to call out.
Media members and people like that have different ways to be able to get you on the phone. They can go through the administration and set up interviews. And if you're willing to do it and someone's willing to interview you and the jail's willing to set it up, yeah, absolutely, they will.
I think that's kind of where this comment must have came right afterwards, because they'll put your number up for approval and get approved. But do they have to get the number approved to call out, or is he saying if somebody wanted to call in and like leave a message or something?
In the penitentiary, you have to get everything approved. Visitation, they do background checks and do everything. On the phones, they do the same thing. So to make sure you're not calling other felons, and so the phone has to be directly to the person that's applying. And I mean, it's strict. It is strict. A lot of ways to manipulate that, but it's strict. And I did want to answer to somebody asked me how long I've been out. I've been thinking about that while we've been talking. So I think I finally fully got out 2019. I think 2019, end of 2019, early 2020.
And kind of just while we're just talking about you in general, you personally, Texas Ranger stopped by and he just quickly left a message. How are you doing, bud? And just maybe you could give us an update personally how you're doing recently. If you'd like. I'm sorry, AR. I'm trying to jump around subjects here.
Well, it's been a battle. I'm not sure if everybody knows Pete is back in intensive care at the hospital. He was local, and then a week after being there for a bad infection, they transferred him back to the same big hospital he was at in Peoria. And, you know, I've been talking to him daily to kind of keep monitoring on what he's going through. So we're hoping he gets out at the end of next week or early the week after. It's going to be a lot of therapy. Not sure when he'll be back to YouTube. Might not be this year either. I think we've talked about still collaborating a little bit on the new channel, but for myself and Kiki, I think you and I talked about a little bit behind the scenes. I decided to not have a kidney removed, even though it's in kidney failure and I've been on dialysis forever. I went against doctors' best thoughts and have chosen to not do that. So when you guys see me in videos and I look a little ill, don't throw it at me. Don't get mad at me. I'm doing everything I can to make it through the day and keep working until we find a secondary solution of what we're going to do. I can only walk, I don't know, for about 5 minutes, and then I either have to sit down and stay down, or I got to be on a walker or something. So no, the health is not ideal right now, but that's the whole thing. We're just gonna stay positive. We're gonna keep working through it. I won't let Jen get freaked out about it. And I'm looking at other options. The bad thing about it is, because of my criminal history and I have federal stuff, they've turned down most of my financial capabilities for most of the insurance and different things of that nature. So Jen and I are obviously having to take that into consideration as well. We gotta be positive. We just gotta keep going. So I went ahead and I had them stitch me back up where they had opened me up. I'm stitched back up. I'm very sore, but I don't know. I'm here live with you, so I must be doing something right.
And the thing is you're not keeping all of this private. You're being such an open book about what's going on. And I keep telling you, there's people watching. There's somebody watching who needs to hear about your strength, who needs to hear about you fighting and the choices that you're making, the hard choices that you're making that none of us ever hope that we're faced with. But you being brave enough to actually talk about it, you're helping people, because there are people watching who need to hear this and need to hear about your strength and your openness. So thank you. And we're all praying for you.
And I appreciate it. It's hard. It's very hard. I talk to Jen, like I said, every day, and a lot of times you just want to clamor up and hide and go into the darkness. And that's why, I have people reaching out. I haven't seen any videos from you. What's going on? Well, sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to get in front of that video and speak. And, I have done some that I just immediately erased, and the confidence factor is waning a little bit. I had a comment that kind of hit me. It was, I don't know, about a week ago when I was in the midst of really thinking about whether I was going to have the kidney removed or not. And people need to understand, I've been on dialysis for 15 years. So I've been in kidney failure for 15 years already. And dialysis is extreme. It's very hard. It wears you out. It's very hard on the body. It's hard on the mind. And the doctors came to me and they said, "Look, it's not working. It's not working. We got to do something. We feel as though if we remove one, kidney, maybe we can rejuvenate the other to a better working ratio, and we can go from there. There's no chance of any type of transplant or anything of that nature. So don't think like that." And people need to understand too, my injuries to start all of this were sustained in the penitentiary when I got stabbed numerous times in both kidneys while in prison. So, when you hear people get stabbed, that is what happened to me on top of being diabetic. So, I've been prepared for this. I mean, I'm 47 years old. I've lived a long time so far, and I plan on going even more. And Jen's really worried about my health, and I know other people have seen or heard and said, "Man, that's scary." But we're battling. We're not giving in. I'm not giving in. So let's just all keep staying on top of it, and keeping each other positive and moving forward, and everything will be all right. We'll be okay.
That's right. Power prayer too. Keep your faith in God, keep your faith in your family and your friends, and just live every day to the fullest. And since we have Jeff's comment up, Jeff had another really good question that I've been holding on to for a while. I wanted to throw at you, AR. It was directed towards you. And he says, AR, have you ever witnessed the Bible changing a person's life while in prison?
Yes. Yep. I think if somebody is serious about changing their life, and I'm not saying everybody does it through the Bible, because there are some that have other faiths that help them change their lives. But I have seen some of the most distraught deranged, mentally ill people that you would think could never get out of the rut they were in and would never change sit down and literally begin studying the Bible on their own in their cell by themselves. And man, it worked wonders. It really did. Like I saw, you would never think these people could change the way they did. And they were proud of that change and taking pride in their everyday improvement. And, you know, a lot of people would call them Bible thumpers or fake preachers. And I'm like, hey, you know what? If that person found a faith, I don't care if it's Catholic, Mormon, I don't care what faith it is. If you find something, and typically it's, you know, a religion that involves God, that guides you to being better and wanting better, don't stop with it. Keep running. And it's made a lot of difference in a lot of people's lives. And I've seen it firsthand. My wife is a God-loving Christian, reads the Bible, can probably recite so many valuable things out of it. Her mom is a diehard Christian as well. Jen doesn't push it on me, but she'll slip little things into conversation with me. And you know, so I do see the value of it. I've been around it, and I do see good people within the faith. So I've seen it literally change people's lives.
I really appreciate you taking a moment to witness that for the audience. Again, it's one of those things that there's somebody watching who needs to hear that right now, because not only have we, it just goes back to love. Like we talk about how love changed the direction of AR's entire criminal career. It changed the direction of where he was going in prison. Well, here's another example of how accepting God into your heart has completely changed other people's lives. And so it's nice when somebody is brave enough and has the courage to come out and witness something like that. So we appreciate that, AR. I want to pull this comment up. Oh, I'm sorry. Pardon me.
No, go ahead. I think it's important for someone like me on an everyday basis. And I know a lot of people, and I've said this before, don't struggle with the thought of telling a lie. They don't struggle with the thought of making the quick dollar in a improper way. Because they've lived good, solid lives. They've lived with God in their hearts, and they've lived with love, and they haven't walked that path. Where I myself still every day, guys, every day, when I get up in my morning, I sit on the edge of my bed for 5 minutes and just breathe and say, I'm going to do well today. I'm going to do well today. I have to remind myself every day of where I'm at, not where I was. Because where I was, I would just jump up, get moving, go, here's an easy way to make a buck. Here's a way to do this. And whoever I hurt in the path, who cares? Now I literally take every morning to remind myself of how good of a place I'm in. The people around me are amazing. And each step that I'm going to take today is going to be for the betterment of those around me. It's not all about me anymore. It used to always be about me. Now I care about what can I do around me, which is going to make me at the end of the day be able to sit right back down and take pride in how amazing the day went for everyone around me. And that, you know, it's made such a difference in my life to be able to just slow it down, take a deep breath, and just realize we make mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes, but let's make honest mistakes. We can overcome this mistakes. And that's how, like, you know, the question by Jeff, you know, what has God done for others? Well, I don't speak a lot about God, But let me tell you, there's somebody within me now guiding me that allows me to patiently be able to sit and want better, where in the past none of that mattered. And it's not better for me. Like, I don't care about better for me. I want better for all of us. And that's the difference that I think Jen and the Bible and God in itself, and those like you, Swamp, and Jeff, and the people around me that are willing to say, keep your head up. We're going to walk through this no matter how hard it gets. It's okay. Be patient. We're going to get through it. We're going to get to later, and then we'll redo it again. No big deal. And that's really helped me. So every time I've had the thought in my mind, like, oh man, I don't want to tell the truth about this, or somebody's gonna, they're gonna look negative at me about this or that. The hell with it. I just got to be honest. And if somebody wants to critique me on honesty, at the end of the day, I can say, yeah, well, at least I didn't lie. I told you what it was, and that's what it was. So that's how I want to live.
Thank you for answering these emotional and difficult questions, AR. We appreciate your completely candid honesty. All right, so the next comment I wanted to bring up, I just thought this was interesting. I wanted to get your take on it or anyone else's. And Twizzle Stick says, I was on the bus and these guys knew they were in prison from the shoes. Do you know what he's talking about?
In Arizona, the shoe? Is that what he's talking about? The shoe in Arizona? It's like the worst of the worst. But I'm not sure where he's referring to.
All right, we'll move on to the next question. Kane, you had said that you were thanking for the membership, and I appreciate that. It was donated by OCD Shaggy. So please thank him when you see him next. Thank you, OCD Shaggy, for the 5 memberships. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was really awesome. Thank you. And then just back to the news, like how important these lifelines, the outside world must be. I just started this comment from Rolo, which was, I was part of a 45-minute riot in, is it Karakan over, did I say that right? I don't know. I don't know how to.
Corcoran. Some people call it Cochrane, but it's Corcoran. And that's where they house the Joker face Osuna. I don't know if you've ever heard of the inmate Osuna that I mean, he went in for murder, but he had the big Joker face tattoos on his face, and then he ended up dissecting his cellie on the yard. And that's really funny that he says that, because I was on that yard when that happened. So I wonder if Rolo and I happened to be on a yard at the same time together. But yeah, that's in California. It's Cochrane or Corcoran.
All right. Well, I don't know. I thought it was interesting. And I guess Twiz is in the chat still because he says, yeah. And then Rolla says the colors. And then Twiz says they were like, what yard were you in? Haha. And then Rolla says, or ninja shoes. I don't know what's happening. And then he says, Twiz, you were wearing ninja shoes? Do you know what
Yeah. Rolla was on C yard. Yeah. Right, I know right where you were, Rolo.
Let me write this.
Wow, small world. And yeah, it was Jamie Osuna. He killed a young lady, mother of like 5, at a hotel, and then he went to penitentiary. He had like massive tattoos all over his face and made him look like the Joker, and he dissected his cellmate. He wasn't supposed to get a cellie. They put another lifer in with him, and he dissected him with a razor blade and took out his rib cage and his eyes. Pretty sick stuff.
Twiz cleared this up. He says, not me. I was talking about this guy, and this other dude got in, and they were like, what yard were you in? I saw your shoes. It was funny to watch from an outsider.
Yeah, so they got like jail shoes. They're kind of funny looking. it's so obvious when you leave with those shoes. It's like, oh, you came from prison. I know where you were at.
So,
Yep, I know what they're talking about.
And then Rolla was following up on Jamie and says, because she looked like his ex and he hates his ex. Was that why?
Yeah, the mother of his children. Yeah, and this female evidently looked like her, and he ended up I think a pair of scissors. I think it was. He stabbed her to death and just left her out back of the hotel. But I mean, that was not by the time he got into penitentiary. And this guy's little. Like he's man. People think I'm a little guy. This guy's like smaller than me. He's 5'5", 120 pounds. I mean, he's itty bitty, and he could take lives in a heartbeat, I guess.
And it just blows my mind too. It's like you get these violent offenders and it's like back to cruel and unusual punishment. Okay, so you want to sentence somebody to prison, you're going to put them in a situation where it's like mortal combat and there's a chance that they can't even functionally live in the prison. It's just the system is so broken.
We call it gladiator school. It's called gladiator school. You either become a gladiator and you survive, or you don't. It just is what it is.
We have a couple. Oh, one other thing I wanted to bring up. Okay, so I have 3 more comments and then we'll play that news clip and I think we'll call it a night because we've been streaming for a while. But there was a comment you were talking about your difficulties when you came out of prison. And one of the comments you made was talking about health insurance. And Colleen says, wait, they can deny your insurance if you're a felon. Is that what you were saying?
I'm a federal lifetime parole. I committed, obviously, with my criminal syndicate and criminal charges. I instead of getting a 500-year prison sentence, I took a 25-year sentence with parole, meaning my parole will go for 500 years. And when I'm on parole, I can't have any financial assistance. And when I apply for insurance, I can be denied on the majority of the insurance coverages. So, like, I just my last hospital stay, the insurance covered, I think it was $192, and Jen and I paid $18,500 or something like that. So, no, I can't be covered. And that's the biggest restraint for Jen and I right now. I can't have dental insurance. I can't have vision insurance. I can't have medical insurance. Can't have nothing. So, kind of just out there, just battling it. So when people say, well, go see this really good doctor. Yeah, okay. Do they take 90-year payment plan?
I'm so sorry to hear about that aspect of your struggle. And I just don't even have the words. I know the concept of keeping people from taking advantage of the system when they come out or giving them assistance, but this is a different thing. If all of our insurance plans require some sort of public assistance for them to be affordable, then they're not really independent private insurance plans. They're subsidized by the government, it sounds like. If you can't get any insurance as a felon because it's attached to government money, I mean, what does that say about our healthcare system? It's essentially subsidized by the government, it sounds like, at least in your state, if that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, it's Jen and I have been trying to figure it out high and low on what we could do. And it's funny because, I mean, just kind of wrap up my little part of this. When I got out of the penitentiary with Jen, literally making sure we left straight from the penitentiary, we went right to my parole office, meaning we're not wasting any time. I know you have till tomorrow to see him. We're going today. And I'm like, all right, let's go. We walked in, I filled out the paperwork, and he immediately called me back. He didn't even make me wait in line. He called me back. And I was trying to be nice. I was like, "Hey, sir, thanks for taking the time to see me. I know that," and he just stopped me cold. He said, "I don't call me sir. Don't think that I'm on your team. Don't think I'm here to help you. Don't think I give a damn. Just know if you mess up, and I'll be seeing you every day, 3 times a day. I'll be monitoring every one of your movements because I want you back in prison by the end of the week." I just kind of stopped and looked at him. I'm like, "I hope you're joking, man, because I'm not going back. Like, I'm not going back." He's like, "Oh, is that a threat? You going to commit such a crime that you're not going to go back? And I just need to detain you now." And Jen literally had to get me out of there. Like, "Let's go, man. He's trying to lock you up literally right now." He didn't want me out. He wanted me back in. I mean, I had earned my parole. I had done everything they asked me to do. I had flying colors on everything. I had earned my parole. And he literally did not want me out. And he violated me 8 times in a 2-week period of time. And thankfully, the judge each time found the violations bogus and removed him off of my case and got me a new parole officer who happened to be very helpful. But that guy just literally, the day I met him, was like, "Dude, you're going back. There's just
Now,
nothing."
was this the parole officer you had that prejudged you when you walked in because he knew you were involved in the riots? Is this the same jerk, or is this a different
Yeah.
jerk? Oh,
No, same
gosh.
thing. Yeah. And just to answer Viviana, it's not by Arizona, it's actually federal. My crimes within my plea bargain to get my charges lessened to where I didn't have to serve a lifetime sentence with no parole. For me to be able to get parole, I had to sign my plea bargain stating no government issued financial help whatsoever for my lifetime. I cannot have a government issued ID, meaning that my ID is straight through the state Department of Corrections. So I can never get a valid driver's license. I can't go to Washington and get an ID. I have to have a federal prison penitentiary ID at all times. I can't have my own bank accounts. I can be on my wife's, but I cannot be a user of the cards. She has to control all of that. They blocked me from everything. I can't have internet in my own name. I can't. I mean, I'm very dictated on what I'm allowed to do and what I'm not allowed to do. So,
Just on the same subject of your PO, OCD Shaggy says, AR, is that guy still a PO?
I don't believe so, but I don't know. Like, I got all my stuff transferred out of that state as quick as I could, and that someone asked, "Can you move to a different state?" I did immediately. I got moved out, and a lot of people. I'm just gonna kind of bite the bear's head off right here. A lot of people get on me about this stability thing. They're like, "He lives in a hotel. He does this." It's more like an extended stay. I'm not living just in your normal little hotel room. I have a nice place to live. Um, but yeah, it's no lease, nothing holding me here because I don't have the confidence in stability yet because I feel like I'm locked in a jail cell at all times. I want to be able to go. So a part of my plea agreement that I just signed again last year when we renewed my new plea agreement is the fact that they do understand I'm not going to have a stable residence like a house or an apartment. I will always keep a stable mailbox here in Vegas, but I'm allowed to, I guess, be able to move around a little bit. I could travel with permission out of state, but I have a big fear, and Jen and I are talking. Here's another big change in life. We're talking about going to sign a lease and trying to get an apartment or something of that nature. But just imagine when you go in on these things and they want to know what's your work history, what's your rental history. Well, Jen and I sold our house in 2017, right before I was getting out of the penitentiary. We sold our house, and we literally have just been on the move. We lived in our van for like a year. So I think we're more stable now than we have been in forever. And, people judge me upon that, but they don't get what it's like. I went from living in a 6x8 cell for the majority of my life, and now I have some freedom. So I'm scared of actually signing that lease. Hopefully one day I get through that, because it's hard on Jen. It's hard on the dogs.
It's so interesting when you talk about that, because to me, it sounds like the opposite of institutionalization. You know what I mean? Like, you would think that if you had been institutionalized, like it's almost like you beat that in a way. I mean, I'm not saying that this isn't a different repercussion, but I'm just saying a lot of people feel that they need that confinement. They need to be held in a stable, like, you know what I'm, I don't know if I'm wording this right.
No, and that is very, very true. And Jen and I sat down and I told Jen, I said, look, when we're doing this, I don't want to be locked in to anything. I don't want a car payment. I don't want rent. I don't want anything. And she's like, what, are you worried about ruining your credit history, with a chuckle? And I'm like, no, it's not about the credit. It's, I'm breaking the system's cuffs on me. They've had me locked up since I was literally 14 years old. I'm me now, and I'm out of this, and I'm going to live it my way until I'm no longer able to live it my way. And that's what I'm doing. That's why you don't hear me complain about, oh, this is tough, or my car broke down, whatever. Whatever. It's okay. Today's a good day. Don't worry about it. But I can't lock myself into leases and stuff like that, even though Jen really wants me to now. And maybe I will.
I think that, ultimately, when it comes to your health, you have to consider what's going to give you the best chance at the best health. And maybe Jen is right. So I'm just not trying to get into your personal business while we're talking, but I think with your future and the way you're holding it, that might provide you with the comfort and the strength that you need, in Jen too, so she can take good care of you having a house. So I like her thought process. I think she's onto something. There's so many great comments coming out. I just put this one up for RJ. Hate that for you, AR. Keep sharing this information. A couple of people want to know a few things. Heather Fitzgerald wants to know, can you get you can't get Social Security either?
No, I haven't put any money into Social Security, for one, but for two, I'm blocked from any type of payout. I cannot have any type of disability payment. I cannot receive I can't even say the word. Whatever, Social Security. I can't have retirement. I can't have anything like that. I can't have IRA funds, mutual funds, none of it. But I never had to pay taxes.
Well, can you drive? Can you legally drive?
No.
All right.
I don't drive. I don't drive.
All right. Before I get to the new questions, I had just a few more starred ones I wanted to get to. We're going to leave that one because we have a lot of dog comments that I'm going to take down.
My dogs.
Well, you know what it is people are talking about the different possibilities when it comes to the dog and BK. People are talking about, the dog hairs in the apartment. Was the dog just in PA? Where did he train the dog? Who owned the dog? Was this a family dog? I mean, there's just like the Pandora's box of dog questions that has been opened up. I just want to bring this up because it goes along with my sentiments. Our country is messed up. Well, I know our country is messed up. I still don't think there's a better system out there, but our country is messed up. How do they expect people to be rehabilitated with everything that's against them? And I just couldn't agree with you more. Can you imagine being sentenced to your time, knowing you have that whole burden and that you now have to serve in prison and now have to figure out how to deal with that? And on top of it all, you could die at any moment because there are killers roaming around that aren't able to be controlled by the guards. Like, Oh, it's
Well,
unbelievable.
it's like Jen will tell you on my state charges, I served 115%, meaning I did my entirety of my sentence plus 15% more to come out with additional parole that they could violate me on, meaning that if I went back, I would do an additional 30% for doing a total of 145% of a sentence. And that's Arizona's way of doing it. They'd love to do that. So you get 5 years, expect you're going to do 9. If you get 7 years, expect you're going to do 12. You know, if you get a 15-year sentence, just know you're doing 25. Just
I don't
expect it.
understand. Is this like add-ons? Are these add-ons? Like, because I've never heard that kind of jail math before. I always thought it was like every year you get
It's
like
discipline. Yeah, it's disciplinary. So if you're not a troublemaker in Arizona, you do 85% of your sentence. So if you're a nonviolent felon, you do 85%, you're eligible for parole. If you get a ticket for being out of place, I mean, you're not even doing anything wrong, you're just out of place, like you went to the bathroom before head count, that can take off a percentage of your good time.
Wow.
If you're caught smoking when you're not supposed to be smoking, they can take more of it. Mine was gone immediately. Like I got in a fist fight my second day on the yard, and it was already gone. I was at 115% immediately, and then it just kept going up. So I earned it. I mean, I did it, but still.
Well,
You
some
know,
of these
I
things
was
are pretty benign. Some of the things they're taking away your good time served for are completely ridiculous. Like taking too long to get to the yard. Is that what that's what you said, right?
Yeah, I mean, it just petty things, very, very petty things. And, you know, I don't mean to cut you short. Jen's going to be back, and we got to do some bandage stuff on me. Are we able? So Jen and I were thinking Monday or Tuesday of doing a live. Do you want to join Jen and I and do a live together?
I would love to. So you're not sure which day yet, just get back to me. Shoot me a text, and I'd love to. I haven't been on your channel for a live before, but you come on mine all the time, so I'd love the opportunity to return the favor in some way. Just let me know, and we'll arrange a time behind the scenes, and I'll keep all of you posted. I have so many questions here. So many people have insightful things they want to say to AR, and so many people still have questions, because I still have about 10 I could go through with AR. We could probably go for another hour or two, but we can't keep AR all night. And like you said, his wife is calling right now. So what I'd like to also do is maybe invite you back for a part 2, because this has been incredible live.
When are you going to go live? When are you doing a live next? I'll join you to continue. I feel bad because this kind of turned into a Albert takes over the live situation. I definitely didn't have that intention at all. I want to focus on what you were doing for your live, but I'm more than happy to answer some questions as well to get those answered. But I do want to focus on your content, your live. When do you think you wanted to go back and do your live, and I'll join you again?
You know, I'll probably do another live tomorrow just so I can get all the stuff out I wanted to about the change of venue, because I mean, when Robert and I were streaming yesterday during the hearing, I literally took 3 pages of notes, just all about the surveys, and I really would love to get those thoughts out. So I'm going to go live at some point tomorrow. I would really like you to be on the live stream, so I don't want to do it too early.
Can we do it like after 5 o'clock your time?
How about we plan on could we do a 9 p.m. my time? That's Eastern. So it'd be like 8 your time, I think. Oh no, it'd be 7 your time. Is that too early?
Yeah, 6. No, that's fine. Are you talking about morning or evening?
Evening, unless you want to do it.
No, evening is best. That's perfect time for me.
All right, so AR and I will continue this live stream along with some things on change of venue tomorrow evening at 9. And then on either Monday or Tuesday, I'm going to be with AR and Jen and visit their live stream. So I'll post this all on my channel. Thank you to the live stream. I can tell you this has been such an amazing active live stream tonight. And thank you for bringing these amazing questions to my guests. I can't thank you enough. And with that said, I hope everyone has a great night, and that's going to be it for us. Have a great night. Peace.
Yeah. Have a good night. Thank you.